active chemical phosphorus for picture tube.
There's a 4-block stretch in Chicago's Belmont-Cragin neighborhood where a crumbling giant still stands. Windows shattered, walls charred from fires. Inside, production lines sit frozen in time, and the ghosts of 15,000 workers echo through empty hallways. This was once the headquarters of Zenith Electronics, the company that put a television in nearly every American living room, the same company that invented the remote control you're probably holding right now. So how did the king of American television end up as a burnt-out shell that teenagers use as a hangout spot? The story starts in 1918, but not in some fancy corporate boardroom. It starts on a kitchen table. Two young radio enthusiasts, 22-year-old Carl Hassel from Pennsylvania and 21-year-old Ralph Matthews from Chicago, set up shop in a garage in Edgewater. They called it Chicago Radio Labs. These guys were ham radio operators, and back then, that meant you were building your own equipment. There was no Best Buy, no Amazon. If you wanted radio gear, you made it yourself, or you knew somebody who did. Hassel and Matthews were good at what they did, and word got around the amateur radio community. They started getting orders, real orders, money orders. They used the brand name Zenith, taken from their amateur radio call sign, 9ZN. It had a nice ring to it, futuristic, like you were reaching for the stars, which is exactly what radio felt like in 1918. You could pull voices out of thin air. Magic. But here's where things get interesting. In 1921, a man named Eugene MacDonald came into the picture. MacDonald was no engineer. He was a salesman, a hustler, the kind of guy who once drove a car up the steps of a statue in Grant Park just to get arrested on purpose because he knew it would make the newspapers. He saw Hassel and Matthews' little operation and saw something bigger, way bigger. MacDonald had money and ambition. Hassel and Matthews had an Armstrong license, which was gold in the radio business, but they were scraping by. MacDonald became general manager, and in 1923, they officially incorporated as Zenith Radio Corporation. The commander, as MacDonald liked to be called because of his Navy rank from World War I, poured money into research and development. Even during the Great Depression, when competitors were dropping like flies, Zenith kept pushing forward. They introduced the first portable radio in 1924, the first push-button tuning in 1927. These weren't just radios, they were status symbols. By 1937, Zenith had outgrown their original facilities. They moved into a massive 400,000 square foot complex at 6001 West Dickens Avenue on Chicago's west side. This wasn't just a factory, this became plant number 1. The nerve center of an empire that would eventually span 7 plants across the Chicago area. During World War II, women flooded into these factories to build radar equipment and military communications gear. In a war run by radar and radio, their 1944 employment ads read, "Hasten Victory." Many of those women stayed on after the war ended, becoming the skilled hands that built America's television age. The first Zenith television appeared in 1939, but commercial production really took off in 1948. By 1960, Zenith and RCA were the two giants of American television. Everyone else was fighting over scraps. Each company controlled more than 20% of the market. Walk into any home in America, and chances were good you'd see that chrome Zenith logo staring back at you. But MacDonald wasn't satisfied just making televisions. He hated commercials. Absolutely despised them. He was convinced that advertising-supported television would eventually collapse under its own weight. His solution? Invent the remote control so people could mute the ads. The first version, in 1950, was called Lazy Bones, but it had a cord running across the living room floor that people kept tripping over. In 1955, they tried Flashmatic, a wireless remote that used light beams, but sunlight would trigger it and make your TV change channels on its own. Then in 1956, Zenith engineer Robert Adler cracked it. The Space Command remote used ultrasonic sound waves. You'd press a button, it struck aluminum rods inside like tiny tuning forks, and the TV would pick up the frequency and respond. No batteries needed, no cords, just click. That clicking sound became so iconic that people called all remotes clickers for the next 30 years. Zenith sold 9 million televisions with that technology before infrared took over in the 1980s. The 1960s were Zenith's golden age. Sales topped $500 million by 1966. 15,000 workers across multiple plants. Plant 1 at Dickens Avenue employed 2,500 people making televisions and hi-fi stereo equipment. Plant 3 on Costner Avenue had 2,100 workers building components and transistors. The company even had a subsidiary, Rowland Corporation, that made picture tubes. Their slogan, "The quality goes in before the name goes on," wasn't just marketing, it was a promise. Zenith products were built to last. But in 1958, something happened that would change everything. Eugene McDonald died of cancer. He was only 72. His death left what company insiders called a void of talent at the top. Within weeks, Zenith also lost their longtime engineering genius, Gilbert Gustafson. The two men who had driven innovation and strategy for decades were suddenly gone, and the world was changing fast. The 1970s brought Japanese competition, Sony, Panasonic, Toshiba. They were making good televisions at prices Zenith couldn't match. Company chairman John Nevin knew it. In 1977, he made the painful decision to start moving production to Mexico and Taiwan. Over 2,000 Chicago workers got pink slips. Nevin wrote them a letter saying Zenith had tried longer and harder than others to protect the jobs of U.S. employees, but the math just didn't work anymore. Those Chicago workers had been loyal for decades. Some had started during World War II. They didn't take the news well. By 1988, Zenith was the last American television manufacturer still standing. RCA had been sold. Motorola had moved on. Zenith held out as long as it could, but the bleeding wouldn't stop. In 1995, South Korea's LG Electronics bought a controlling stake. In 1998, Zenith closed its last remaining U.S. factory, the Melrose Park picture tube plant. 1,200 workers lost their jobs. Plant 1 at Dickens Avenue, the flagship, the headquarters, the birthplace of so many innovations, was already abandoned by then. What happens to a factory when the people leave? At first, nothing. It just sits there, a monument to what used to be. But nature and time don't care about history. Windows break, roofs leak, pipes freeze and burst. In 2017, a major fire tore through Plant 1, hollowing out what was already a crumbling shell. Firefighters stood outside in the cold, watching smoke pour from the building where thousands of people once built the future. Neighbors complained it had become an eyesore, a haven for teenagers looking for adventure or trouble. The city tried to force the owners to tear it down or fix it up, but the property was contaminated, the costs astronomical. Today, if you drive down West Dickens Avenue, you can still see it. 4 blocks of abandoned industrial space, chain link fences, boarded windows. The same building where women in the 1940s soldered circuit boards for victory, where engineers in the 1950s invented the clicker, where families in the 1960s earned middle-class livings building America's favorite televisions. Zenith still exists technically. It's a division of LG, doing research and development in Lincolnshire, Illinois. But the factories are gone, the workers are gone, the American television industry Zenith once dominated is gone. All that's left is a name and a haunted building on the west side of Chicago. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're documenting the rise and fall of American industry, one factory at a time. These stories matter. They're part of who we are.